Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuel. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, this is the morning after, the afternoon after the night before, which was the debate, the big debate, and I think we can safely say that there won't be another debate. I mean, there's talk of a second debate, but I don't think there will be another debate.
Why?
Um,
Why
yeah,
would there?
that's right. Now, one has to say right away that the media consensus is that Kamala won. Boom, zing, gong, club.
CNN flash poll, 63%. Okay, yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
So we expected that, but this was entirely predictable. So I could just say preliminarily, this wasn't a great night for Trump.
Nope.
I think one has to say it wasn't a great night for Trump. Um, I don't think it was a great night for her. I think
Okay.
she was composed in the way Trump wasn't composed. Trump seemed off his game. He seemed uncomfortable, ill-at-ease almost throughout. But she was composed. She was making faces all the time, smirking, laughing. Exactly. Very, very annoying. But for the media, this is catnip for them. They love this. Oh, look, she's making fun of Trump. She's humiliating Trump. Great. Um, but I think um, I mean, we'll obviously get into the substance of it. It's worth reading the transcript and comparing that to the actual debate, because in the transcript, I think Trump gives quite substantive answers, which doesn't necessarily come across in the debate, whereas she gives completely rambling answers. But because she did the whole smirking and routine, it seemed like she was really very confident and very substantive and so on. But of course, the big story, I think, is the abysmal, horrific performance of ABC News that were clearly in the
Shame.
tank for
Shameful.
Harris
Shame.
and violated their own debate rules. I mean, they set these rules out, which was no fact checking and no interruptions. And they violated both of those rules. So that was a disgrace. Anyway, they're just my
Well,
preliminary
I think
comments of what
before
it
we
is.
get into the nitty gritty, and I don't remember what the topic was, but one of the moderators was asking a question. It was so detailed and it was so self-answering that I thought that he was going to answer for her. I mean, it was that bad. It was that bad.
Yeah.
The moderation was abysmal.
The
I mean,
worst ever.
it
There's
was
never been
his
anything like
worst ever
that. Yeah.
because it was obviously very, very biased. And um, I don't know. I mean, this is like a poison in our politics. I mean, when is a fact checked? I
Yep.
mean,
Exactly.
what is it? Why are we wasting our time here?
Yeah.
This is political debate.
This
Political
exactly.
debate is not necessarily fact based. I'm
Exactly.
sorry to bust anyone's bubble.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And it's just not a matter of fact. I mean, you can take this position, you can take that position. It's not a factual matter that you can just sort out. Look at what's the capital of Russia or anything like that. It's not a factual matter, and yet they do this. So somehow, well, it's factual, and then they take the prejudice that somehow, well, Trump is the one who has to be factually checked. So he's the one who's somehow making all sorts of factually inaccurate statements, but they never did any checking for her, for Harris, and she made a lot of
Not,
many,
I mean,
factually
I
inaccurate
watched her
statements.
closely. She didn't get fact checked but once,
Not
as far
once,
as I can tell.
not once, not once.
No, I mean, because, the whole issue around fracking, this is how dishonest these people were. They laid out her entire history with that issue and
Right,
just let her slide into it. Okay. No,
right.
she didn't have to do any heavy lifting whatsoever. Now, before we go into George, you always do this, and you're absolutely right. Because I was thinking about this as we were convening here. Reading the transcript versus the delivery is very, very different. Okay. It's very different styles. Now, before we go in and do that, Kamala Harris did a good job. She did a good job in her delivery. That was something that but with such a low
Right,
bar,
right.
okay. Obviously, I said before the debate when we discussed this, she would take the position of a prosecutor. That's exactly what
It's
she
exactly
did.
what she did. Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the things that I found rather peculiar, and this is a criticism of Trump, this is the first debate. I think I've seen just about every single debate since 1976. Okay. Um, this is the first time we had a debate where Trump's presidency was being critiqued more than the incumbent administration. Now, Trump shouldn't have let that happen.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I was just kind of mesmerized by that. I mean, why? You know, you're supposed to be, and Kamala Harris was asked the question, are Americans better off now than they were years ago? I mean, she just did. Why didn't the moderator say, Madam Vice President, can you answer the question, please?
Exactly. That's
You didn't.
exactly right. That's why it's worth looking at the transcript, because that was the first question. And when you read that, that was the question. Are we better off than we were 4 years ago? And then she went off on this long, long spiel, which has nothing to do with the question. And then again, about her life and her mother and, and
And
everything else.
and and
And then she started attacking Trump, Trump's tax cuts for the billionaires and so on. But you didn't answer the question. And again, a moderator should have then, pressed her. Well, can you please answer the question?
okay. But see, this is a criticism of Trump because irrespective of what the next question was going to be to him, I would have turned to the moderator. So, are you going to ask her again to answer the question? That is the most germane question of a presidential debate. Don't you think? He didn't. That was just. It was there for him. Low hanging fruit. Grab it. And why don't we talk about? Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago for the next 90 minutes? Maybe we should do that. Okay.
Right.
And he
Exactly.
didn't do it. He allowed her to irritate him.
Yeah.
Dog eating immigrants. I thought that was completely.
Well, that's an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, because he was made fun of with the dog. On the other hand, that's going to be the most memorable part of the debate. What are people going to remember? They're going to remember the business of these dogs and cats being eaten, which means people are going to start looking up on YouTube. What's the truth about this? And the truth is quite ambiguous. I mean, although this was again the fact check. The city manager said that there's no evidence for this. Yeah, but there is other evidence for it. I mean, the city manager, he hasn't done a proper investigation. So that may well be what everyone will remember from this.
Yeah, but is that a good?
The dogs and cats being eaten.
Is that a good thing to
No,
remember?
no, I don't think it is. But that's why I don't necessarily think that was a bad move for Trump.
Again, but see, as George and I've tried to explain so many times, this is Trump speak. We're used to it. Okay, he does these type of things here. I think everyone that watched it and noticed, and something George and I predicted. If you were going to talk about the cost of eggs, he was going to end up talking about immigration. Okay. I mean, knew he was going to do that. I think he should have pushed the inflation issue.
Yes, okay. The economy, because that's his strong suit. The economy
is strong suit.
That's where, I mean, if you look at the polls, all the polls say that that's the issue on which people, alongside immigration, that the public trusts him more than anything else, the economy.
And then the whole issue of abortion, which of course I would, if I had been Trump, I would have had a very, very short answer. I brought it back to the states. Right. So why don't you debate with the states? Because it's done.
Right. Okay. Oh, you're right.
My answer would have been very, very short. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
No matter how you feel about the issue, it's a state's issue right now. And so that's where it is right now. It is not a decision of the executive of the United States, the president of the United States. It's out of his or her hands. Right. It's in the states. Next question. That's what I would.
I agree, but that was also probably the most outrageous of the fact checks, because that she thrust herself in and said, "Oh, well, there's nowhere in the country is it legal to perform an abortion, a late term abortion or whatever she put it." That's simply untrue. That is absolutely untrue. It is legal in a number of states in the country, all the way up to birth, and even it's legal that if in the process of abortion, a baby is born alive, it is illegal then to kill that baby. That's how it is. And she came in with this fact check, And as with Candace Crowley back in 2012, you inserted yourself with a fact check, and then you got it wrong. I mean, it's something that was very quickly pointed out by others. No, what you're saying is wrong, and that's where it's become so outrageous. The fact it's bad enough that you insert yourself into the middle of a debate, and then you get it wrong. That's a fireable offense.
You know what was very interesting? We talked about the pre-recorded interview that Kamala Harris did with CNN. But if you looked at the visuals, I watched it on C-SPAN, okay? And the visuals that you have Kamala Harris on the right-hand side, Trump on the left-hand side. However, the way it was presented, I don't know how you felt about it, but I felt it was a pincer, and the moderators were the other pincer, and Trump was in the middle. So it was coming in like this, okay? So he was fighting off the moderators and Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, I don't know anything really about her legal career, okay? But law school is rote memory. A lot of it is. Remember the law.
It is absolutely rote memory.
And I have to, and I'll give a hat tip there. She did her prep. She really did it. And she, of course, the scuttlebutt was that she's not disciplined. She doesn't look at binders and all that. Well, she proved everybody wrong. You know how I know that she prepped very intensively? Because she started repeating herself.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You could tell that it was very little of it was spontaneous.
Right.
Even the zingers and the jabs were obviously built into her transcript, as it were.
Right. So, that's right.
I give her that, but there was no spontaneity, and she only cackled once, I think.
That's right. She did that. But you also have to give credit, not to her, but I think her team of advisors, who are very smart. There's David Plouffe, he's an Obama veteran. They planned this strategy, and you have to admire people who they plan a debating strategy. They got under Trump's skin. They set out to get under Trump's skin. I thought that he would parry it better. I didn't think he would go for it. I thought that he would, basically, no, they're baiting me. They're needling me.
I mean, but what he should have done, and it's something you and I do all the time when we look at people that we disparage, we just kind of roll our head or kind of chuckle, like, okay, hey, there you go again. All right, keep going.
Well, exactly. And I was just thinking, because we talk about like Norman Finkelstein, when he comes on these debates, and there's always somebody there who's going to needle him. Oh, you're a self-hating Jew, and you're a disgrace to your parents, and they do this all the time against him, and he never takes the bait. He's absolutely always focused on what he wants to say. And I think that's the kind of debater's discipline, because he knows, you can see that he's smiling. He knows they're trying to needle him. So, but he doesn't take the bait. I'm a self-hating Jew, about my parents.
Another example of that with Norman Finkelstein, it was very memorable for me, is that he was on with one of these shock jock radio guys that knows nothing, essentially, but he was debating him. Vanguard, I think his name, or somebody like that. And, well, if it's, I think at the time it was like, if it's only 30,000 people, then how can it be a genocide? I mean, 30,000 people. And Finkelstein would not react to it.
Right.
Okay. Because that just chews up time. Right. And it shows that, genocide is all about intentionality. It's not about numbers. Okay. So you're right. Norman would just stoically
That's it. And that's what makes a good debater, which is that they're trying to needle you. They want you to get distracted. And Trump, I think to my surprise, took the bait. I mean, that one about right at the start, we said, oh, the people leave his rallies early because they get so bored.
Water off the back of a duck.
Provocation. And he went for it.
Water off the back of a duck. I would not even deign to even recognize that. It's like, come on. It's like size of rallies again. It's like, oh God, haven't we got past that?
Right. And that's it. And that was it. So that was one strategy that you had. Another strategy, I don't know whether that's successful, is the bringing up all these Republicans and trying to embrace these somewhat good Republicans like the late great John McCain, and then he brought up this, what you said about John McCain 10 years ago. I mean, I mean, this was an aspect, again, what she did, which I found absolutely infuriating. Well, we've got to put all this thing about the past, we stop going on about the past. We need to look to the future. She's the one
But
who kept bringing up the past. So she talks about what he said about McCain 10 years ago. And then even worse, she talked about the Central Park Five, which is from the 1980s. I don't know how many people even know what the Central Park Five were. And then even further back to the 1970s, when the Nixon administration was pursuing his father's business because he wasn't renting out property to blacks. I mean, that wasn't even him. That was his father that was in the crosshairs of the U.S. Justice Department. That's the 70s. That's 50 years ago. You're bringing this stuff up. And again, a moderator should have said, well, we really don't want to go down this path. I mean, this is all kind of a long, long time ago. But she did. And then she had the insolence to say, well, we've got to look to the future. I've got a plan for the future.
yeah, but since you brought that up, she disparaged his person repeatedly over and over again.
Over again.
How many times did Trump do that to her?
No, not at all.
That he did have discipline there.
He was disciplined. You're absolutely right. He didn't. She was constantly, very personally, very, very nasty about him. And twice she kind of referred to him as this. It's almost like she was about to say something like this creature or this disgusting human being. She still referred to him as this, as if somehow he's such a disgusting person, who had no business being in the Oval Office. So she was very, very nasty personally to him. But again, that's catnip to the media consensus makers. It's like, yeah, boy, that's it. You got him. But that, I don't know. I mean, I'll ask you, those smirks and those laughs and that facial grimaces, do you think they work well? I can't believe people take that.
They work for the converted.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. It's red meat to the Democratic. I was going to say base, but they didn't vote for her. So
the media. Fans,
yeah. I mean, for the media activists, it was red meat for them. Trump never looked at her. Yep. He looked straight ahead the entire time. Right. I don't know if that was a mistake or not, but that's exactly what he did. And some of his facial gestures, I would have just, don't go there. Just don't go there. Don't do it.
He didn't do much in terms of facial.
Not much, but you could tell.
Smiled. He kind of that's about it. And I think it's reasonable just to smile, but not to. Don't roll your eyes. Don't sigh.
We had bile for. He didn't have bile for her. He had it for the moderators. That's you could tell. You could really tell.
Right.
Because I mean, the way Trump reacted, for better or worse, and it's up for the viewers that watched it. I mean, she was just kind of an annoying fly in the room as far as he was concerned. Right. Another thing that was really interesting is that I thought a lot about it today. I watched it in my morning. Okay, I wasn't a good soldier and stay up in the middle of the night. But one thing I did appreciate about Trump is that I think he appropriately, in his Trump-esque way, that we're at a critical juncture right now, and I think pressing the seriousness of where the country is and the world is. I think he scored some points there. Kamala Harris, when she talked about the future, it was so muddled. I didn't know what future she was talking about. Okay?
I think that's.
I don't know about you. I mean, I was watching on my computer, and I have my iPad next to me, and I had it open, and then when she started with those long paragraphs, and this kind of not exactly word salad, but just kind of the usual tired pieties. I just turned to my iPad because I just lost interest. Okay?
Exactly, it was very boring. I mean, that's a
very boring.
It's boring. So you're not interested in where this is all going to end up. You just know it isn't going to end up in any good place. But that's again very interesting. And I was thinking that when the question turned to war, and they're getting to an argument, particularly on Ukraine, she started laughing. Again, laughing at something that Trump said. That I thought this is a really bad look. Somebody told you, oh, you should laugh, but you're talking about something serious like war. You shouldn't be laughing. I mean, you got to avoid that. But she's sort of, she's laughing at Trump, and that really brings us to again a really striking point is when they were talking about Ukraine, and that moderator David Muir, he asked, do you want Ukraine to win? That's the same that Caitlin Collins asked. And he said the same thing he said to Caitlin Collins, I want this war to end. And then, so that was his answer. And then he asked again. And he had no business asking again because he had already answered that question. So why did he ask again, other than to provide a talking point, a talking point for Harris? Oh, yes. Look, he doesn't want Ukraine to win.
Yeah, well, since you brought up foreign policy, I found the questions, loaded questions, and banal answers. I think both of them, I mean, from our perspective, from what we talk about most of the time, I found both of them to be basically illiterate, okay? Very, very disappointed. As you said, George, I mean, these are issues of war and peace. They used to be like high on the agenda. Right. And so both of them acquitted themselves very badly. The moderators acquitted themselves very badly. And it was almost kind of like, check, done, let's go to the next thing here. And I was very disappointed with both of them. Obviously, Harris memorized, okay. And Trump, he could have been a far more, I mean, he was president of the United States, right. Okay? Right. I mean, he knows something about what goes on. And right. I think he could have done a better job of that. No, because public opinion polls, in their aggregate at least, he's got, that's his lane. If he chooses to take it, he doesn't.
No, I agree. I think that was, it should have been his absolute, something he should have, hit out of the ballpark and said, hey, you've got these two horrible wars. I don't know how many people have been, he said millions. It's not millions have been killed, but nonetheless, he said millions. It didn't happen under my watch. Then he needs to emphasize that this is, this is how, this is a terrible administration. But of course, the question, and this is again, the interesting how the assumptions that guide media people, is that instead of asking, the incumbent administration, what's your end game here? What are you planning on here in Ukraine? You're planning on defeating Russia? I mean, how does that happen? How are you going to defeat a nuclear superpower? So what are you trying to achieve here? What have you accomplished in all this time? So instead of asking those questions, which is what a moderator should do, they made Trump the bad guy because, well, don't you want Ukraine to win? I said, well, yeah, therefore it's a given that we should just go on fueling this war. I mean, that's unquestioning, and that just shows the bias of these moderators. They completely accepted these ridiculous assumptions. Well, don't you want this war to go on? No, I don't want this war to go on.
Yeah, and Kamala Harris, she wasn't fact-checked. And if that was going to be part of the program, no American service people are dying in wars abroad. No, that's ridiculous. What about Iraq? What we had on the Syrian-Jordanian border? What about the Navy that's in the Black Sea, Red Sea? Who knows what American military personnel are in Ukraine? So that just was left as if it was standing on its own. It was outright. I mean, it was false and even possibly a lie. Okay, yeah. But that again, it's very interesting that for Trump, America first in all of this. I mean, both candidates had America last when it came to foreign policy, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, that's right. Now, in Ukraine, he still seemed to suggest that he's going to wrap this up really on day one. Again, he didn't spell out how he was going to do it, but okay, but at least, unlike Harris, he wants to bring it to an end. I mean, Harris is essentially, well, let's just keep it going. We just, just indefinitely without any objectives in mind, and and any end goal or anything like that. And now the fact check. Now she made a lot of outrageous comments, which again were not fact checked. Remember, she brought up again the good people on both sides. something that is, that has been corrected so many times. I mean, just look on YouTube. They never said the fascists were good people. And again, I think she brought up about the suckers and losers. All of this stuff.
January 6th.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, they just sat there mute, and didn't do the fact check. Now, if you're going to fact check, you have to fact check both sides. You can't, it was a violation of the rules because that wasn't the debate terms that were agreed upon about the fact checks. But now, having violated the rules, then you've got to violate the rules from both sides. You can't just simply fact check Trump and not fact check any of her claims.
What about fact checking the moderators?
Yes.
That's the futility of it all. Okay. I mean, because again, we started, but the moderation was just abominable. I mean, it was so blatant as well. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's right. And that's why it seems very strange for Trump that it's a weakness of Trump and Trump's team that they had agreed. I mean, so they agreed to these two debates. The first debate ended in disaster for Trump because although he defeated Biden, it led to the Democrats dumping Biden 2 months before the convention and replacing her with Harris, which was presumably part of the plan. Trump shouldn't have agreed. He shouldn't have agreed to a debate in June. He said, we'll have a debate after the convention when we actually have nominees of the two parties.
You and I cautioned against it over and over and over again.
Yeah, because then the Democrats would have been stuck with Biden, and then Trump could have, I think, cruised, comfortably to victory. So that was a big mistake. And then he agreed to this, ABC News, to host this debate while he's got a lawsuit. He's got a lawsuit pending against ABC News because of that he was slandered by George Slapopoulos, as he called him, because Slapopoulos has said that, he was convicted of rape in New York. He wasn't convicted of rape. So he's got this lawsuit pending. Why would he agree to have a ABC News host a debate when he's actually, there's a clear conflict of interest when ABC News and he are involved in litigation?
And also we know a lot about the mediocrity of Joe Biden. He's been mediocre his entire life, except for when it comes to excesses. Okay. He was up against Joe Biden.
Good.
But now he's up against the Democratic Party, the media, the usual academia. He's up against the entire coalition, okay? Because Kamala Harris is a willing vessel, empty vessel to be filled with whatever they want, okay?
Yep.
And so, obviously, in retrospect, Trump should have just cooled his heels and said, no, let's wait for your convention. We don't wait for our convention. And now he's gonna, he rues the day, obviously. Yes. Okay.
Right.
Obviously. I mean, what we need to, well, I would like to find out, and again, because the polling is so skewed all the time, I mean, what does the rank and file of the Democrats, is it going to motivate them to vote? Because that's what this is really going to get down to. Did she reach out to independents? Maybe. Did Trump? No. Okay, so that, and maybe that was their calculation. Okay, from what I could tell before, and again, this could all be a psyop. Said, I want to get to know her better. What do you mean? She's been vice president for 3.5 years. What do you need to know?
Right.
And we're reintroducing her and all that. And to be honest, considering the, I guess, hours of a loop that you can play over and over again of all of her gaffes and word salad, that wasn't her on the debate stage. Just say what it is. It's true.
Yeah. No. I think she gave, I think, a polished performance. What I'm not sure about is whether all the smirks and the kind of facial, grimaces and laughing and pointing a finger at him, how that goes down. I think the people don't like it, but the public doesn't like that. They don't like somebody who's arrogant and rude and disrespectful. She was arrogant, rude, and disrespectful.
But you're right, but it was Trump. See, that's the difference. That's the difference. Did they want her to do that? They wanted to denigrate him so much because that's what's going to motivate the base to go out. She's our girl. She's going to lead the team. You know, she's head of the parade and all that. Was that part of the calculus? I don't think she did anything she wasn't. I think she did exactly what she was told.
Oh, I think she did. I agree. I think she did exactly. I think this was all
and so
very
it's just to completely depress the guy, you know,
right.
Miniaturize him. Was that part of it? Because again, there was this pincer going on. Okay,
Right.
because even though we didn't see the faces of the moderators, we didn't see it very often, but they were smug in their questions,
Yes.
and she was smug in reacting to Trump. And I think this was cool. On some level it was coordinated, maybe not spoken, but you know, we're going to get it from here, we're going to get it from here. Okay. Right. So I don't know, George, you know, nominally speaking, you're absolutely right. It's disrespectful, particularly to a former president. We have to remember that. Okay. But for Trump's base, they're going to say, yeah, how disrespectful. You know, you're breaking of norms. No presidential candidate has ever done that on the stage, but not to that degree, at least.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. So like he's a former president, but she was saying that, well, he does, he kind of besmirched the Oval Office. And she says something like, well, they were invited when he talked about the Afghan the Taliban leaders were invited to Camp David. They somehow, this is a suggestion of this invited them to Camp David, which is the sort of the holiest of holy.
Well, Arafat was invited.
Exactly. Camp David is just simply a retreat for presidents. There's nothing sacred about Camp David. You know, a lot of people go there.
Well, I mean, you know, Bin Laden's folks were there one time as well. Okay, with Ronald Reagan. Remember?
Yeah, that's right. And besides,
the George Washingtons of the new Afghanistan. Yeah. That's why Trump had the idea. Everyone. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
Trying to emulate Ronald Reagan.
That's right. And again, you know, these were opportunities that Trump could have said, yeah, but I believe in talking to people. I believe in negotiating an outcome. You know, people you don't like, those are the people you have to negotiate with. You know,
and those are the people you need to talk to most.
Exactly. People you like, you don't need to negotiate anything with them. But, you know, these are people who are adversaries, and so you have to negotiate with them. So, you know, again, he could have done that. And that's why I was kind of surprised that, you know, that he didn't do the debate prep. I mean, the way you do debate prep is you have an adversary there, you know, you do the rehearsal, and somebody is going to do Harris. And so somebody would have gone against Trump and made all the points that Harris was going to make. They knew everything Harris was going to say, but it didn't look like, you know, Trump had prepared for these attacks. And so that's why it was just, I mean, that's kind of what you're supposed to do in debate prep is, you know, it's like, you know, shadow boxing, you know, or at least a sparring partner, somebody who's going to really throw everything at you. All the nasty cracks and everything at you.
Trump showed himself to be the best historian of his own administration. We saw that. Okay. He had absolute acuity, clarity, but not about the Biden administration.
Yeah.
I think that would have been, and I would have much preferred that. Donald, historians will take care of you one way or another, okay? But there are other things at hand right now. And I think that I mean, we don't need to go through it now, but I mean, the Biden administration is the worst administration in my lifetime by a long shot.
It's terrible, absolutely, absolutely terrible. And again, I think he needed to emphasize all that. They say, look, you know, none of these things happened on my watch. And but somehow they managed.
Where were you, Harris?
Exactly, but somehow she managed to make it about the Trump administration. So you have two wars. Under Biden, you have uncontrolled border under Biden, you have inflation under Biden, and somehow we're arguing about the Trump administration. And again, it's Trump allowed her then to set the agenda, and of course, her and the moderators to
because
set the agenda.
They knew one of the tender underbellies of Trump. He will not consonant anyone criticizing his administration. And you know, I understand that to one degree or another, but that's not what was the task at hand.
Right. No, that's right. And again, but the bias of the moderators. Of course, we knew they would bring up January the 6th, and then twice they asked him, do you regret anything you did on January the 6th? And again, he answered it. He'd already answered, said, I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible for security on Capitol Hill. I offered them the National Guard. They rejected my offer. So he says this. He's answered the question, and then they ask it again. And that again just shows the outrageousness on the part of the moderator. He's answered the question. You don't need to ask him again, because again, he then says the same thing again. And then they turn it around to her and said, so do you think he's trying to suppress the vote? Is that what he's trying to do? Well, thank you very much. Whack.
No, that was passing the baton. Did you know?
Right, exactly. Now take over. Now exactly. Take it from here.
Okay, but what does this all mean? Did it move the needle? Okay, Trump supporters. Did you watch any Fox coverage?
I didn't watch the Fox. I saw a little bit of his interview subsequently with Hannity. That was on. I saw that on the internet. He apparently Hannity interviewed him. That I watched. A short excerpt from his interview with Hannity.
Okay. Where I am, I'm blocked from watching a lot of the videos, unfortunately. The reason why I bring it up is that I think the last time our preamble to the debate, that both sides are to claim victory, and both sides are, okay. As we both spoke earlier, both are going to, at least overtly or otherwise, say, well, I didn't lose. I think that's part of it as well. Okay. I mean, Kamala Harris has a stronger case to make. So, I certainly didn't lose.
No, definitely not. No.
Okay. But I just don't, I think it's going to, I don't know if it's going to motivate Trump people more or Harris people more, this debate. I think that remains to be unclear. The victory's in the eye of the beholder in these side things.
That's really, and that's really the interesting thing. And I don't know the answer to that, because what we've been listening to over the last 12 hours has been the commentary of the media, and they roar with approval about the things that interest them, the things that they like, or roll their disapproval about the things that they hate. Now, we've got to look at it from the eyes of not the media, the public who is watching this. What do they think? And that's why you have to wonder whether Harris's comportment would alienate people, because people don't like arrogance, and they don't like making fun of someone, trying to be disrespectful, demean someone, and she did that. I remember, in the 2000 debate between Al Gore and George Bush, and Al Gore did that sighing. He kept doing the sighing. He thought they were good because he thought, oh, he's so smart. He's so much cleverer than George W. Bush. So he did the sighing and the kind of, rolling his eyes and so on. It was a disaster for Gore. People didn't like that. They thought he was arrogant. But I take your point. That was Gore, Bush, kind of even Steven. Trump is a different case. So the question, yeah, great. That's how you should treat Trump.
Yeah. You're absolutely right with your observation. Everything we've gotten in the last 12 hours is how the media feels about it. I would surmise, I'd even put money on it, a lot of people are going to go away, but what about the economy? What about the economy?
Yeah.
You have a vision. Well, you could have a vision, but I live in this economy right now. Right. I think that Trump could have hammered more on that. I think he made his point with immigration. You and I knew he would bring it up often, but I would have gone with the economy more often than with immigration, because you can have an ideological view of we're all country of immigrants, and my great you can do all of that, and it's effective for some, but the price of eggs and the price of milk, that affects the vast majority of the country. Okay. Right. Not a lot of the daddy warbucks around Harris. If an egg cost $100, they wouldn't even notice it. Okay, but in watching the debate, because of course this is going down the menu. We always, it's a checklist and all that. But if I had been Trump, I just would have kept bringing him. Yeah, we can all talk about that later. But what about what's going here on now? okay,
Right.
and be prepared. And because he didn't do any preparation, we knew he wouldn't, okay, but just
I
have
thought he would. I thought he would because I always think that look, Trump is a successful businessman, and you think you don't get to be a successful business without doing your homework. You need to prepare. I mean, you go into a meeting and so on. So I thought he would prepare. I was surprised that he seemed so unprepared.
yeah, and oh, what was I saying? But the again, what the reaction is going to be, I think because of the expectations that were built into this,
Yes.
Kamala Harris, is she gonna make it off the debate floor in one piece? Okay. And of course, she did very well stylistically. What I'm getting at is that from a format perspective, Kamala Harris won on points. I have to say that. On
I
content,
Yeah,
on content,
and I think that's the thing. I mean, on the format, he seemed uncomfortable throughout. Never really hit his stride.
never hit a stride.
But he's not. As we've discussed many times before, he's not a great debater. He's never been a great debater. Um, but in terms of substance, he made a lot of substantial points. Now, people don't pay attention. The people who hate Trump, they never acknowledge about the substantial point. That's why if you read the transcript, you think, well, wow, he made this point about the price of eggs. He made the point about the price of bacon. He talked about that. He talked about how migrants are taking away jobs from African Americans and the Hispanics. And he made all of those points. So when you read the transcript, you think, well, that's pretty good. But you don't get any sense of that when you watch the debate, because in a way, I was distracted throughout by her faces. I mean, it's like I just couldn't take my eyes from all her grimaces. I was wondering what face is she going to pull now, and that's why I kind of.
That's why I think it was all intentional, because I don't think she wouldn't bat an eye if it wasn't part of the program. Okay, so maybe not necessarily distract him, because they probably
He wasn't
surmised.
looking her. Yeah, he wasn't
Yeah,
looking at her.
he was, but what she's doing, she's playing to the peanut crowd,
Yeah.
peanut gallery. She's playing to the moderators. We got him on the run. We got him on the
Right.
run. Keep
Right.
it going. Okay, and of course, because George and I remember the Nixon years and how much the media
Hated him.
hated him.
Yeah.
They respected him. Remember when Nixon asked Dan Rather, "Are you running for office?" "No, are you?"
Right.
And that was like an earthquake. How dare the media say something like that,
Right.
even to Richard Nixon? You remember that? Remember that
That's
was
right. Exactly.
But then that was such a breach of decorum.
Right.
And now what we saw yesterday would be unfathomable years ago. And so I think that was choreographed, and I think it was to motivate her base, and everyone's on the same, because it's not about policy. That's what's so frustrating about it. It's about him.
Right.
That's what it's about.
That's right, and that I think is really the question. You're like, we have the commentators, what they're looking for, and then we have the public. What is the public? So it'll be interesting to see the polls. I imagine she'll get a small bump from the polling. But as with the bump from the convention, I don't think it's going to last. I think that within a week or so, we're going to be on to something else. We're going to be talking about some other things, and I just don't think that that whole thing is going to last, because she didn't really land anything memorable. I mean, it's not like
neither one did.
That's right. Jack Kennedy or anything like that you can keep playing over and over again. There was nothing. Yeah, neither of them did. So there was nothing really there for people to recall. And so I don't think so. Now the question then is, you said independence. You said that maybe she has attracted some independence, and that's an interesting point, because she was clearly making a play for the Nikki Haley Republicans. I don't think there are that many of them, but I assume there are these Nikki Haley Republicans.
But in this election, you got to play to what's out there. So yeah.
So that's why she brought up the McCain, Cheney. I can't remember whether she brought up John Bolton, but
well, what she's trying to do, she's trying to do a reverse here. It was, remember in '72, Democrats, no, it was Democrats for Reagan. Okay, and that
That's
was
right.
in
That's it. 1980. That's right. Yeah.
1980. She's trying to play
Yeah.
a Democrat.
Yeah.
She's
Absolutely.
reversing it. Republicans
Right.
for
That's right. Yeah.
Harris,
Yeah.
and we had that again. The Cheney gang, endorsing her the day before. Okay, that was no surprise. That was part of the choreograph where she could say it.
Right.
Okay. That was all part of the game plan. So George is absolutely right. I mean, that little sliver,
Yeah.
it might work.
It
It
might
may
work.
be
It might.
a
She
sliver
might.
that makes a difference. Okay.
Right, exactly, and she was very belligerent. I mean, in terms of just as when she outlined the foreign policy agenda, as much as it was very belligerent. No negotiations, with the exception of Israel and Hamas. And again, we have to do everything, for Israel. Yeah, exactly. But no negotiation, no nothing about no negotiation with North Korea, no negotiations with Russia. So it was a very belligerent stance that she took. And I guess the hawks, there's those the neocons, saying, well, that's it. That's our candidate. I'm sure. Yeah. Now, how many of them there are, and whether it's already baked in that they would be supporting Harris, I don't know. But I think you're right. I don't think Trump really won anyone over. I think she may have. We'll see. But I don't think Trump won anyone over.
Um, and that's why I hope in the waning day, was it 55 days now?
Something like that. Yeah.
They better change track. And I go with the economy. I would go full blast on the economy. Okay. I mean, I hear all the time, it's tough to get through the month. Bills are building up. Maxing out on my cards. I mean, it's a pretty dismal Bidenomic story right there, and it wasn't put on display during the debate.
I agree. I think
And this typical, and this is what I don't like about Democrats in power. They just think money is going to solve everything. 25,000 here, 5,000 here. Doesn't solve it. It makes things actually worse.
worse.
Okay.
Of course it does. Of course it does. No, and I think and I'm not sure Trump's going to do it. He needs to be much more focused. You don't need rallies that go on for 2 hours. Boom, finish it off 45 minutes and go somewhere else. 45 minutes. You don't need to go on and on telling these same stories over and everyone's heard all these anecdotes before. And as it turned out in that debate, unfortunately, he was just again telling these anecdotes, which is okay when he does these rallies, but here you've got a debate. You've got a very limited time frame to make all your important point, and he didn't do that. So he's got, as you say, he's got 55 days, so that's a little less than 8 weeks. Got to be disciplined. You've got to be absolutely focused. Economy, immigration, crime, ending. No World War III. And that's it. Stop with these 2 hour long rallies.
Well, without being snide and smug, I would have approached it as everyone knows, I was president of the United States, the 45th president of the United States. Here we have my worthy opponent next to me. She is vice president, but apparently she has learned nothing about being in government. I have learned a lot.
Right.
Okay, that kind of language lands. Okay, because Kamala Harris didn't demonstrate that she's learned anything about policy or government after 3.5 years as being vice president. That was patently clear. Sure, you can memorize. Everyone gives you kudos for that. But it was so vacuous.
Yeah,
but
completely.
Juxtaposition was Trump telling all these kind of micro stories.
Yeah, no, that's it. That the vacuousness it's very important. Again, no one's pointing that out. Just nothing. I mean, everything she said was just nothing.
Marshmallow.
Nothing. I have a plan. And she kept saying, I have a plan. What plan? It's like suddenly you come up with a plan. You've never had a plan before. Oh, I have a plan. So she didn't have any of that. As a lot of very personal stuff, attacks on him. Dragging stuff up from decades ago. It was completely vacuous. And again, in terms of substance, I think he made the substantial points. Now, in terms of if somebody said, well, should we have another debate? I would say, okay, but we're going to take it away from these news stations, because I mean, they're terrible. Why do they get to host these debates? Why does CNN get to host it? Why does ABC News get somebody else to host these debates?
Well, I mean, it used to, wasn't it the what was
The Republican women, no, what was it?
no,
The
it was
Daughters of the Revolution. The Daughters of the Revolution.
was it the Daughters of the Yeah,
I think it
yeah.
was the Daughters of the Revolution.
Okay, everybody, I can solve it easily. Have an organization like that, get together, write up the questions, and then you just put it on a screen and let the candidate read out
Right.
the question. Okay, all right, okay, and without all the sniping from the background. I mean,
Right.
it was like you know how like a fruit fly just came. They're so tiny, but they somehow always get near your ear. That's what
Right.
the decorators were for Trump. They were
But,
always
that's the thing. It was the Daughters of the Revolution who used to host it. Then that was taken over by the Commission on Presidential Debates. But at least for when it was the Commission on the Presidential Debate, they had these reasonably unbiased hosts. And have Jim Lehrer or Robert McNeil. So okay, well we'll accept Jim Lehrer, but then they dispense with that. You don't have the Commission on Presidential Debates anymore. So now you just give it to CNN. Why does CNN get to host it? Why does ABC get to host it? Why does NBC get to host this? Why give them this?
Why don't you let C-SPAN just do it?
Exactly, C-SPAN. I got Brian Lamb. I think Brian Lamb is retired. I don't know how old he is, but Brian Lamb. No one would object to Brian Lamb being the host. You could probably find somebody else who's okay. Everyone accepts that this is a fairly neutral figure. It wouldn't be that difficult to do. I think it's outrageous that these news shows get to host them. They make a lot of money on this. What have they done to deserve this? They haven't done a good job. Every time they do these debates, it's a catastrophe.
Well, also what it does is
Chris Wallace, who made an absolute hash of that debate. So now we got this, and we had Candace Crowley. We can't keep going through this. They don't deserve it.
Well, the way this debate was played out, it was only the only reason why it was Harris agreed is that she had only something to gain. She had nothing to lose.
Right.
Trump had everything to lose.
Right. I mean, I think Trump unfortunately just agrees to these things. I think he should just say, no, I don't agree with these things.
Who was the last person in the room?
Exactly. I mean, they agreed on these two debates. That was, I think, in May when they made that deal with the Bidens. So with these two debates, we'll have one, CNN, and then one on ABC. And Trump said, yeah, great, we'll do this. It was a disaster. It was a terrible decision for him. I mean, one led to the replacement of his opponent, and this led to Harris kind of grimacing away.
Then I have a question for you based on that. Trump in the private sector, he knew business. Yeah. And business in a way is policy, I think. You have to understand, the market. You have to know what supply and demand is. You have to understand supply chains. People denigrate farmers as being like hicks, okay? Well, to be a successful farmer in America, you got to be a pretty smart guy or gal, because it's not easy to do. It's a very, very sophisticated thing. But Trump is a policy guy. I mean, he sees what works and what doesn't work, okay? But he's still not a political guy. He just hasn't, it's just not in his DNA. Kamala Harris has a completely void of any kind of policy thinking. But her debate performance showed that it's all about politics, not policy.
No, I think that's a very good point, because he wrote that famous book, The Art of the Deal. Now, the whole point of a deal is that you gain some things, you lose some things. You don't get everything that you want. The other side doesn't get everything that it wants. But you've got a deal, you've got a contract, and now the building is going to get built. With politics, isn't really like that. Politics is much more of a zero-sum game, and
it can be very fluid. It can be very
So you do a deal, and if you're not absolutely got every single thing, all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, you're going to get screwed over. And that's why, Trump thought, okay, great. Well, we'll have these two debates, and that's kind of the way he would work in business. They'll get something, I get something, we'll both be happy. Well, no, you got absolutely shafted. The Democrats did extremely well out of this, and they're not going to have any more debates because there's no reason to have the debates. They've got everything they wanted out of Harris. They'll say, hey, Harris did well. She overperformed. She's not going to do as well next time. She can't do as well. This was a high for her. Trump probably won't make the same mistakes next time. So why should there? There's no incentive for them. So Trump may want another debate. I don't know if he does want another debate, but the Democrats aren't going to do it. They think, okay, we're done. We don't need to do this again.
Well, I mean, you have to call out when someone is adroit and focused on what they want to get. The Democrats got exactly what they wanted. Okay.
Yeah.
Trump, I mean, no hits, no runs, no errors. But no hits, no runs, no errors is failure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. They got what they wanted. They're going to get very good coverage. They'll say, hey, she looked presidential.
She looked presidential. That's
exactly.
it.
That's it. And then that's it. They have no incentive to do this again. I mean, like if you won a contest, as they see it, we won a contest. Why do you want to give somebody a rematch? I mean, and risk losing what you've gained. They're not going to do it. Now, I think there's still 8 weeks to go. So there's still plenty of time. But Trump really does need to be a lot more disciplined. I mean, he's got he's up against a kind of a formidable machine. The Democrats, the media, the deep state, they're all out to get him. So he's got to really be game.
Isn't it a day late and a buck short? I mean, I'm serious. Okay. Wasting your breath on your rallies. Okay. I mean, is that a sacred cow? I mean, really? Okay. Telling the same stories over and over again, because she's told her story once.
Right.
Done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because how many more interviews is she going to do, George? She's not going to do
no, not going to do anything.
Hardly any. Okay. It'll be with Jen Psaki. Okay.
Yeah, exactly, Jen Psaki. That's right. Exactly. That's right.
They'll roll it out. It'll be pre-recorded. Okay. And so maybe one or two, and because there's so few of them, it's going to get so much media attention. Trump, JD Vance is doing 10 appearances a day. It doesn't make the news.
Right. No, that's right. I have to say, I mean, JD Vance is a very, very skilled debater, very skilled performer. He's got very good very quickly. I mean, he's you watch him now, he gets all these hostile interviews and he glides through them. He's always, smiling. He's got really, really nasty questions being asked. He retains his smile, his composure.
He's indomitable. He's indomitable.
Right.
Okay? Because, dare I say it, he's running for 2024.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 2028.
2028, excuse me.
No question. No question. I mean, he's now, whichever way this election goes, he's going to be the front runner for the nomination in 2028. And he just looks very, very effective. And
well, so but see, it's one of these things, the intricacies of American public presidential politics. A good feel is something you want. You want to have a good feel about yourself. I want to try to stay away from the word vibe here, but it's Jimmy Carter in 1976. He ran a very, very good campaign. He ran against the establishment, but he was amazingly likable and relatable. Okay, JD Vance is that on steroids. Okay,
well, that's interesting because in a way, Jimmy Carter kind of reached the zenith of his career in that campaign. Because he wasn't at all an effective president, not a good.
As one of my professors said, the greatest achievement of the Carter administration was that he was elected.
Yeah, that's right. He ran the perfect campaign because it really was someone no one had ever heard of. I mean, it's just extraordinary that this one-term governor from Georgia defeated all of the heavyweights. I mean, all the party heavyweights who were well known, they'd been in Washington for years, and he kind of pushed them aside. The whole Jimmy Who, and then he went on to win. But then as president, he was clearly in over his head. He didn't understand Washington and so on. So yeah, I don't know. So the debate is behind us. We've got this one vice presidential debate that's coming up, which will be quite interesting now, because
well, I'll watch it because I want to see JD Vance.
Exactly. I think he's going to be very effective. I mean, he's somebody who's, I think, very good at this. And Waltz, I think, is going to try and do the insults. I don't think that's not going to work against Vance. Vance is not going to take the bait.
We've already kind of touched upon it, and I think that's how we should end this here. George's observation is spot on. What we're getting now is the media's reaction to the debate, and that's going to be obviously skewed. That's baked in. But let's let it percolate a little bit, okay? And I think this is what the Trump campaign is going to have to do, because she didn't land a punch, okay, and neither did he, okay. But again, I think that doing the postmortem is that there's really only one way to pull this out is the economy, and the economy does illegal immigration does impact the economy, so that has to be the mix right there, and that obviously includes inflation. So,
well, yeah, no, I think that, yeah, absolutely. I think that what people are looking at is something very different from all the nonsense that CNN, MSNBC, and all the other thing is, again, that thing about the dogs and cats, I think that story could have legs on it, because it's something people relate to. I mean, you're a pet owner. People relate to it in a very, very emotional way.
Well, why do you think I brought it up first?
Exactly. And there's clearly some truth in it. I mean, how much truth there is, we've yet to find out. But people are going to be looking into that. They're going to want to know, is this really the case that these illegal migrants are going into the park and seizing geese and ducks and breaking their necks and eating them? I mean, if even if you find just one of those stories is true, that's going to have an effect, because what ABC fact check and said there's no truth to it, and then say, yeah. I mean,
well, but apparently they did do a little. They talked to the city manager.
Well, but the city manager doesn't. Yeah, but he didn't quite say that it didn't happen. He just says, "Oh, well, there's no evidence that this happened." So that was his. But what's interesting again is that the media have done no investigating. I mean, that would be very interesting, because there are claims. People have made these claims, and they're on Facebook, on YouTube, that this is happening. This person had found a hanged cat, and they were eating this cat. And so this is clearly there's some evidence for it. Now, how much truth there is that's a different issue. But the media are not doing it. The media just simply accept. The city manager said, "Oh, there's no evidence," and say, "Oh, well, that's it. That's done." But there will be investigation, because people are interested in it, and we'll see what happens. Because I think if he says this is, even if one or two cats or dogs have been killed and eaten, I think that's going to have an effect.
And then it will prove that Trump was right. Before we go, two more quick issues, very quick. Trump did mention the mayor of Moscow's wife, which of course George and I always perk up on. I just love that phrase that this is Hunter Biden taking money from the ex wife of the mayor of Moscow, but the way he calls it, the mayor of Moscow's wife, always I get a good chuckle.
It's very funny, because it's technically correct. I mean, it's the mayor of Moscow's wife, but the way he says it, the mayor of Moscow's wife, it's like, Moscow's wife is a town somewhere in Russia. He's the mayor of this Moscow's wife.
But it just rolls off his tongue. I just love the way it happens.
That's right. But in a way, it forces you to think and say, well, how would I say it? Well, you'd have to say the wife of the mayor of Moscow. But it's interesting that you have to put it that way, even though mayor of Moscow's wife is technically correct. But in order to avoid this kind of ambiguity, you have to put it the wife of the mayor of Moscow, which is actually quite cumbersome to say.
Also, last thing, Russia. I would have thought that Harris would have use that as a political football. She didn't.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. She didn't. Maybe the question didn't really arise, but yeah, that's. I still think that's going to come up in the 8 weeks left. As I think there are going to be more indictments handed down. I think that there's other people who are going to be targeted. So I think this is too juicy a story. You've done it now in
Yeah,
three
because
elections. You know, you're not going to let this go.
okay, I'm going to be non-specific here. But George just said it. I think the way I look at it, there is a dragnet out there. And I think that indictments are going to be thrown around like candy. Okay.
Yeah.
Indictment doesn't mean you did anything
No.
wrong. Okay. But in the public psyche, indictment is like conviction, huh? Something like that. And that happens a lot. Okay. And I think they're going to do I use them as like sprinkles, okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so.
And let the lawyers figure it out.
And indictments they're very serious business for the indictee, because it's your reputation is smeared, and it's going to cost you an arm and a leg, because you're going to need lawyers to protect you. I mean, this is the federal government that's coming after you. You need a team of lawyers to protect you from the federal government. It drags on for several years before you're actually in the clear. When we saw what happened to Michael Flynn, 3-star general. So yeah, you can just do that and destroy people's lives through essentially just abusing the justice system.
Yep. So we'll see. I think Russiagate 3.0 has not completely played its because they had to give it time. They're going to give it room to breathe, and they're going to give it time to percolate into the public consciousness, because Russia is already indelibly stamped on the political culture of the United States, and that's what they're counting.
That's right.
All right, everybody. I think we did a sufficient job of the post-mortem here. No surprises. I think George and I basically called it out much before. But like I said, no hits, no runs, no errors is not a victory.
No. All
right, everybody. This is Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. Today is Wednesday all day. Okay, that means George has his live stream tomorrow.
Tomorrow, Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Please join me. Come with comments, criticisms, ideas, suggestions, above all about this, the debate, what you thought of it, and we'll have a good time and discuss it. Always think about these dogs. I mean, they're very, very upset about what's going on, or supposedly going on in Ohio, with people sort of taking pets and eating them for supper. So they're demanding, well, what are you going to do about it? So, just to calm them down a little bit, see if you've got a few bob in your pocket, whip them out, and, put them on an even keel. Very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology. And above all, we'll keep the dogs calm. Very hard to do. So remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.